Wyslouch here. Welcome to quick tip number 84. I'm currently taking on new students. Please make sure to send me an email if you'd like to sign up for online lessons. Also, access to all of my quick tips and their supplemental materials is available if you become a subscriber to my Patreon page. Today's lesson, I want to do a tune-specific quick tip. A lot of times I talk about broad general concepts that maybe you could apply to dozens, hundreds, thousands of tunes. But instead now I want to go the other way. I want to see how some of these concepts are born out of one specific tune. The one I want to talk about is Bill Cheatham. And maybe we could talk about one of the riddles I encounter a lot on this tune. First, here's an A and a B section played one after the other. 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's kind of a basic way to get through the A and the B part of Bill Cheatham. Now, what does this quick tip want to solve, or begin to problem solve rather? The B part. I always get thrown off by it. The chords happen really fast, and the melody that goes with those chords also kind of has a rapid fire feeling to it that when I'm improvising, I get caught off guard, fall off the rails, and have a tough time getting back on. 1, 4, 5, 1, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 1, 4, 5, 1. That's the chords and then the corresponding melody with it. And basically that's the melody I want to work with. So let's do a tiny bit of analysis. The B part is 4 phrases. Phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 3, phrase 4. If we skeletalize phrase 1 down to its half notes, it basically boils down to this. E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Listen to the classic phrase 1 with all the eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boil down, 3, 4. Okay, interesting. Those skeletal notes all exist in the middle of a triad. Cool. That's an E bouncing down to the third of the A chord and bouncing up to the root. So it's in the middle of a first inversion triad. Make sure to go back to previous quick tips to review triads and their shapes. Same thing for the D chord, the F sharp skeletal note. It's in the middle of a root position D chord. Same thing for that G sharp. It's in the middle of a root position E chord, the 5 chord. And then we land on target note A. So it's like skeletal note in the middle of a triad 3 times and then hit a landing note. How about instead of the skeletal note being in the middle of a triad, have it be on the top of the triad, and then we make some sort of corresponding cross-picking thing that's got the same vibe, the same essence as the tune, but because now the skeletal note is on the top of the triad, it's going to sound a little different. Here's what I mean. Skeletal note E, but the triad is going to be the root position where the skeletal note exists on the top of the triad. Then we go to the F sharp, the D chord. The skeletal note is going to exist on top of X triad, which happens to be a second inversion triad. And then G sharp, also on a second inversion E triad. And then hit the landing note A. So the skeletal notes are still happening where they're supposed to, but now the things that are happening in between the skeletal notes have a slightly different structure, slightly different range. So instead of, we have interesting variation. Let's keep going, staying on phrase 1. The classic melody has the skeletal notes in the middle of the triads. We made a variation where the skeletal notes are now on the top of the triad. Now let's do a variation where the melody notes are on the bottom of the triad. So why don't we make that skeletal thing down an octave so we have a few more strings above to make triads above it. So now the skeletal melody for phrase 1 is going to start on the D string. to bounce those notes off of triad notes above them. So I say what one chord, what a chord, capo 2, has this melody note, E, on the bottom. Second inversion. What D triad, what 4 chord has the F sharp on the bottom? The first inversion triad on the DGB string set. What triad has the G sharp on the bottom and an E chord? Also first inversion. And then we land on an A. What's that going to sound like? So now we have 3 variations just on that phrase 1. The classic 1, 2, 3, 4. With the skeletal note on top, 1, 2, 3, 4. Skeletal note on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very cool. That's just phrase 1. Now if you analyze the whole form, phrase 2 is very similar. The skeletal notes are just E, F sharp, E down to B. Same thing happens with this skeletal melody. In the classic version, the skeletal melody is in the middle of a triad. So I would do the same thing I did for phrase 1. Put the skeletal melody on top and on the bottom of the triad. And then on the bottom, three variations for phrase 2. Phrase 3 is the same thing as phrase 1. Nice. We're 75% of the way there. The fourth phrase is just, it's a skeletal melody existing in the middle of some triads. A triad, D triad, then just like a scale thing that kind of resolves to an A. So if we were to do the same treatment, let's put that on top. And let's put it on the bottom. So now we have 3 distinct variations with a very simple system. Tune-specific quick tip. Bill Cheatham just trying to figure out different ways to navigate this rapid-fire B part. Here's the original again. 1, 2, 3, 4. On top, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then finally on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very cool. Once I have those in my fingers, I would try playing really slowly and see if on a very intellectual level I can sort of start combining these. Middle, top, middle, bottom, top, bottom, top, just have a good time playing it that slow and see if you can sort of combine it. Don't worry about this getting into your normal playing speed that you're doing at the actual jam and everything. These kind of things you have to integrate extraordinarily slow tempos. You could of course compose variations where you find the exact combination of these 3 different variations that you just love. You could teach yourself how to do that at higher tempos. That'll start to integrate this in a very practical way quickly and see what it takes technically to actually put this in. I would say overall, don't worry about it. If you want to get this into your improvisational vocabulary where it's appearing kind of out of nowhere, you got to start really slow and just see how it all works, basic level. You could have a good time with that. The way I just played that really slow, what does that sound like really fast? That's nice. I thought it sounded pretty cool. Gives me some hope of what maybe I could sound like in the future if I really spent some time with some of these tune-specific analyses. And of course you're practicing basic rudimentary things like triads and nice inversions in a very musical way at the same time. So I hope this gives you some ideas, first off, to conquer what I think is a difficult tune, and specifically part of a tune, which is the B part of Bill Cheatham. And secondly, this train of thought of you like a tune, you learn it, and then you want to sit there and figure out how to expand on it. That's probably one of the best teachers you'll ever have, is the repertoire that you're dealing with. So take your time, use your imagination, have patience. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you'd want to take some lessons. Make sure to subscribe to my Patreon and stay in touch.